When the first blades cut across American ice, the sport was an import, a northern curiosity carried south by Canadians chasing winter. In the late 1800s, the United States was a nation of baseball diamonds and football fields. Hockey? That was something people whispered about from Montreal or Ottawa, a fast, foreign game played on frozen ponds that most Americans never saw. Yet curiosity spread. In cold cities along the border, Boston, Detroit, Minneapolis, Buffalo, Canadian students and soldiers began teaching locals the rules. By the 1890s, small rinks appeared in New England colleges. Harvard, Yale, and Brown ice teams using sticks shipped from Quebec and heavy wooden pucks carved by hand. The game was rough, unpredictable, but thrilling. In 1893, a group of Canadians and Americans staged what many consider the first organized match on U.S. soil at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. The ice was poor, the crowd small, but a seed was planted. Early pioneers. The Real Foundation came in the northern states where winter truly stayed. Minnesota, Michigan, and Massachusetts became the cradles of American hockey. Outdoor rinks popped up behind schools and town halls. Immigrants from Canada brought knowledge, equipment, and passion. By 1904, a mining town on Michigan's Upper Peninsula, Houghton, made history. There, businessman J. L. Gibson founded the International Professional Hockey League, the first pro league anywhere in the world. Most of the players were Canadian, but the experiment proved that paying athletes could work. Crowds came, rivalries grew, and American hockey had its first professional heartbeat. Although the league folded after a few years, its influence lasted. It showed that hockey could survive and profit in the U.S. The first American stars. By the 1910s and 20s, cities like Boston and New York began hosting exhibition games against Canadian teams. Enthusiastic crowds filled small rinks, demanding more. When the National Hockey League formed in 1917 in Montreal, it took only a few seasons before U.S. investors wanted in. In 1924, the Boston Bruins became the first American NHL franchise. A year later, the New York Americans joined, followed by the Chicago Blackhawks, Detroit Cougars, later the Red Wings, and New York Rangers. Within a decade, the league transformed from a Canadian experiment into a North American enterprise. The arrival of these teams sparked rivalries that shaped generations. Newspapers in Boston wrote of Northern invaders, while Detroit fans embraced the working-class grit of their Red Wings as a mirror of their city's factories. During this period, American players began to emerge, men like Frank Brimsek, the Minnesota-born goalie nicknamed Mr. Zero, who starred for the Bruins in the 1930s. His calm style and lightning reflexes inspired a wave of young goaltenders across the country. The collegiate heartbeat. While the NHL expanded, American colleges quietly nurtured the sport's soul. Schools in the Midwest and Northeast built indoor rinks that served as laboratories for innovation. Here, the focus was skill and discipline rather than brawling. The college game emphasized skating, passing, and sportsmanship, traits that would define the U.S. style for decades. In frozen towns like Eveleth, Minnesota, and Duluth, high school teams packed local arenas. Parents shoveled snow, poured water to make ice, and watched their children chase the same dream once reserved for Canadians. The war years and post-war growth. World War II slowed professional play but deepened the sport's roots. Thousands of servicemen stationed in Alaska and the northern states built rinks wherever they could. They came home wanting to keep playing. After 1945, American hockey gained momentum. Rinks multiplied, especially around the Great Lakes. Youth leagues formed, and equipment companies like CCM and Bauer opened U.S. branches. Still, hockey remained a niche sport compared with baseball, basketball, and football. But what it lacked in numbers, it made up for in loyalty. Fans were fiercely devoted, and communities treated their local rink as a second church. By the 1950s, names like Gordie Howe and Ted Lindsay, Canadian by birth but heroes in American cities, were household words. Their success with the Detroit Red Wings blurred the border. Canadians played for U.S. teams, Americans learned the craft, and the game slowly became shared property. The television age. Then came television. In 1952, NBC broadcast its first NHL game in the United States. For many viewers, it was the first time they had ever seen live hockey. The speed, the sound of skates cutting ice, the flashing goal lights, it was electric. Soon, Saturday night broadcasts became a quiet ritual in northern homes. Hockey slipped deeper into the national consciousness. By the 1960s, the league's American presence was strong enough to justify expansion. The original six era ended in 1967, when 6 new teams joined, 5 of them in the United States. Los Angeles, Oakland, St. Louis, Minnesota, and Philadelphia. Suddenly, hockey had leapt from the cold Northeast to the sunny Pacific. Skeptics laughed. Hockey in California? It would never last. But they were wrong. Television exposure, growing youth programs, and the thrill of seeing a sport so raw and fast captivated audiences even in places that had never seen snow. By the 1970s, hockey in America was no longer a curiosity, it was a movement waiting for its moment. Rinks sprouted in suburbs, kids traded baseball mitts for sticks. But the sport still lacked its defining American story, the one that would capture hearts far beyond the cold states. That story arrived in 1980. The Miracle on Ice. Lake Placid, New York. The Winter Olympics. The U.S. national team, an underdog group of college amateurs, faced the seemingly invincible Soviet Union, four-time Olympic champions, seasoned professionals in everything but name. No one expected a miracle. But led by coach Herb Brooks, those young Americans believed in something more powerful than statistics. They skated with heart, with defiance, with the speed of youth. As the final seconds ticked away and broadcaster Al Michaels shouted, "Do you believe in miracles?" an entire nation answered yes. The Miracle on Ice became more than sport. It was Cold War catharsis, a story of unity, grit, and belief. Hockey had found its American myth. The Gretzky EECT. In the decade that followed, another shift transformed the game. When Wayne Gretzky, already a legend with the Edmonton Oilers, was traded to the Los Angeles Kings in 1988, the world gasped. Hockey in Hollywood? But Gretzky's arrival turned Southern California into a new frontier. Attendance soared, youth participation tripled, and the NHL realized it could live and thrive far from the Canadian border. Soon, new franchises appeared: the San Jose Sharks, the Anaheim Ducks, the Dallas Stars, the Tampa Bay Lightning. The so-called Sunbelt expansion rewrote the map of the sport. Critics sneered at first, but those teams built real fan bases. Children in Phoenix and Miami learned to skate indoors while outside the temperature hit 90 degrees. Hockey had become truly North American. American superstars. By the 1990s, U.S. players were no longer novelties, they were among the best in the world. Mike Modano, Chris Kelios, Brian Leetch, Brett Hull, Jeremy Roenick, names that filled highlight reels and inspired a generation. When Team USA won the 1996 World Cup of Hockey, defeating Canada in a dramatic finale, the circle was complete. The student had challenged the teacher. American goaltenders became legends in their own right. Tom Barrasso, Mike Richter, Jonathan Quick, and later Ryan Miller carried the U.S. flag with pride, their performances proof that American hockey could stand shoulder to shoulder with any nation. The growth of women's and youth hockey. Parallel to the men's rise, women's hockey flourished. In 1998, the U.S. women's team captured Olympic gold in Nagano, defeating their longtime Canadian rivals and bringing mainstream attention to the women's game. Players like Cami Granato, Angela Ruggiero, and later Hilary Knight became household names. Grassroots programs exploded. By the early 2000s, USA Hockey counted hundreds of thousands of registered players, many in places once unimaginable for the sport: Texas, Florida, Arizona, California. Indoor rinks, roller hockey leagues, and community programs made the game accessible year-round. The modern era, a shared stage. The 21st century has seen an equilibrium between two nations that once stood as opposites. Canadian and American players now fill NHL rosters in nearly equal numbers. Stanley Cups travel freely across borders, cheered by fans from Chicago to Vancouver, Tampa Bay to Edmonton. The rivalry remains fierce, especially in Olympic tournaments, but it is a rivalry born of respect. Canada gave hockey its soul, the United States gave it scale. Technology, analytics, and speed define today's NHL, yet the heart of the American game still beats in small rinks and school leagues. In towns across Minnesota, Michigan, and Massachusetts, parents still flood backyard rinks before dawn, the hiss of water on ice echoing under winter stars. The future, and the promise. The sport continues to evolve. Diversity programs bring new communities into the game, inner-city and minority youth are skating where once hockey was unknown. Women's professional leagues expand each season, and adaptive hockey welcomes players of every ability. Hockey in the United States is no longer an outsider. It is woven into the fabric of American life, a blend of speed and strategy, of teamwork and individual brilliance. Every winter, from the frozen ponds of Minnesota to the desert rinks of Arizona, the same echo rings out: the crack of a stick, the thud of a puck, the roar of a crowd. That sound tells a story that began a century ago, when a handful of dreamers carved circles on borrowed ice. Today, their dream has grown into a national movement, proof that passion knows no borders, and that on the ice, America found a new way to define itself.